Welcome back to Falker Figures, where today I'm going to be doing another WWF Hasbro figure unboxing video, and this one is going to be the first time I unbox a figure from Series 4. Series 4 is a bit of an anomaly in the WWF Hasbro line because there are only 4 single release figures that came out in Series 4, which, if you know the sort of release order of all the figures, that is very, very low compared to any of the other series to only have 4 single releases. There is a debate to say that these guys are part of Series 4 as well, which is obviously why they're on the table. The Legion of Doom and the Nasty Boys tag team sets, they came out at the same time as Series 4. So you could argue there's actually 8 figures in Series 4, or there's 6 packs because there's the 4 individual releases and then there's the 2 tag team packs. But again, that's a debate. It's open to interpretation whether or not these guys are officially part of the Series 4 wave or not, because it's kind of hard to explain, but even though they came out at the same time, they've never really been bunched together, like themed together with the Series 4 guys. But I mean, the only equivalent would be Series 2, when the first tag team wave came out with the Rockers, the Bushwhackers, and the Demolition. They all came out at the same time as Series 2. But they do sort of blend into Series 2 a bit better because Series 1 had 12 figures in that lineup, so they came out with 12 figures. Series 2 came out with 9 figures, but there were 3 tag team sets. So that kind of seemed like they were following the pattern of having 12, 12, and then I believe the Series 2 cards were reissued on the SummerSlam card back. So it was like the SummerSlam promotion with a free ticket to SummerSlam inside. And all the tag teams from that first wave, they came out in SummerSlam cards as well. So that would kind of tie the first set of tag teams into Series 2 and say, like, well, they were trying to make up to the 12 that Series 1 came out with, plus they were all in the same SummerSlam promotion. So, yeah, the first wave of tag teams, they're part of Series 2. But there's nothing like that really points to these guys being a concrete part of Series 4. And when people talk about Series 4, they do talk about it's just been those 4 figures, those 4 individual release figures. So yeah, not that I have the answer or that I'm kind of leaning one way or the other as to whether or not these guys should be included in the checklist, or if they're a kind of side note of the checklist as the tag team sets. But yeah, it's an interesting one anyway. But as I say, they came out at the same time, they were released at the same time as the Series 4 guys. So the Series 4 single figures, I don't have any of them. I've not unboxed any of them so far, and I only get 2. So they are, none of them are really jobbers. Even though there's only 4 in the wave, they're not 4 that are easy to get. So I've got 2 of the 4 to open up, but I'm going to have to come back at a later date to do a part 2 of this video to hopefully complete Series 4, even though it's one that you might not be able to complete, because there's one in particular which will take some doing to get one on a card that I can unbox. But yeah, so as I say, there are 4 in the wave. The first one of which I think arguably the lowest profile in terms of Hasbro figures anyway, not in terms of who they are as WWF wrestlers or as wrestlers generally, but in terms of like the Hasbro figure line and where they sit in the Hasbro legacy, if you like, the lower of the Hasbro figures. This guy is probably the lowest ranking of the Series 4, and that is the Dragon, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat even. And as you can see, I've picked him up on an absolutely devastating card. This card is, the bubble's hanging by a thread. The back of the card is coming away from the front of the card. He is mint on card. I mean, he won't come out unless I open him. But he is like the closest to being loose without actually being all the way loose as you can probably get. So I picked this guy up for next to nothing. He was like the price of a loose figure when I got him. So really happy to get. I mean, this when I started doing this is the kind of cards I was looking for, and then I realised that there just weren't that many of these condition cards out there. So I was kind of having to go into the realm of should I or shouldn't I with some of the cards that I've been opening and unboxing. But this one, not even a question. This guy's coming off. So like I say, of the four. Ricky Steamboat is probably, I mean, fantastic wrestler, unbelievable legend of WWF. But in terms of his Hasbro figure and where he sits in the sort of the history of Hasbro's, he's pretty low ranking. So let's get him off the card anyway. There we go. It's just basically just had to punch my finger through that paper. He's off. There we go. So, yeah, completely like stiff jointed, really good shape. Oh, there's a little bit of sort of like discoloration there at the side. I wonder if that'll, seems like it's coming away. Yeah, so as I say, this is the Ricky Steamboat figure, and this just such a shame. Like, I mean, it's quite a cool figure. If you see that just generally as an action figure, as a toy, you think, yeah, that's quite a cool looking toy. But considering who this guy is and what he means to the wrestling business, for his Hasbro to be depicted, I mean, I don't blame Hasbro, I don't blame WWF for making him in the dragon gimmick, because at the time that this figure came out, that's how he was. He had the dragon gimmick at the time, so it wouldn't make any sense for him to just be normal Ricky Steamboat and just plain white or plain black tights or something. At the time it was released, because he was on TV as the dragon, where he used to sort of breathe fire up on the top rope, and then he'd walk to the ring with a Komodo dragon. Is it Komodo dragon? Yeah, so he would. He was very much like embroiled in this dragon gimmick. So to have him just in his plain white tights wouldn't really have made much sense. But when you think about, whenever I think about Ricky Steamboat, I think about Randy Savage, the WrestleMania 3 match, Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat. And the Randy Savage from that match is the first Randy Savage that was released in the Hasbro wave, with the orange tights or like fluorescent pink tights that have the stars on them, the yellow boots. That's the Savage that came out in Hasbro Series 1. And if you think about how iconic that figure is, and how much that match and that image of him against Steamboat at WrestleMania 3 adds to that figure, because it's such an iconic image of Randy Savage. You think, how good would it have been to have a Ricky Steamboat that was in the same image, just in his plain white tights, just looking like as for the majority of his career, Ricky Steamboat did look. And you could have that set up in your shelf, or even like when you're a kid playing with him, you could reenact that WrestleMania 3 match between Savage and Steamboat. But obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and at the time, neither Hasbro nor WWF would have thought, 30 years, 35 years later, these figures are going to be massively important collector's items, so we'll have to make a Ricky Steamboat that matches up with his legacy sort of image. But so that's why he came out as a dragon, because he was on TV as a dragon at the time. But for who he is and what he means to the wrestling industry, to have him in this image, I think is a bit disappointing. But to look at it on its merits, it is a decent enough figure. I mean, it has that sort of the toy. I don't really like that term, but the toyetic term, where he does make a good toy. The image of Ricky the Dragon does make a good toy, because he's colourful, he's got like the spikes, and he's kind of cartoonish in the way that his entrance gear was, because this is kind of his entrance gear. He obviously didn't wrestle with that crown on or the cape or anything. So it does make a good toy. But he's got that jump move that I don't like. I wish none of the Hasbros had the jump move. But it's not dreadful. It's not like awful as a figure. So it's a decent one to have, a decent one to sort of tick off the list, I suppose. This cape is something that I never really understood what it was meant to look like, because I see a lot of people displaying figures, Ricky Steamboat figure like that, like it's meant to be some kind of hood or like a big frill, a big dragon's frill behind his neck or something. I don't know. He would used to come to the ring with a cape, similar to Macho Man actually. When Macho had the cape that was sort of linked to his wrist, so he would hold it out and he'd make like a huge big shape out of himself. Like Steamboat had the same thing where he had the cape that was tied onto his wrist, and it's almost like dragon wings. So I think that's how it's meant to go, like how he was in the packet. It's how it's meant to appear. Um, but who knows? Who knows? Because at the time, I wasn't hugely into WWF, and I certainly wasn't into Ricky Steamboat as the Dragon at all. So I'm not an expert on this gimmick and in this image, but good figure to have. Like because just when you put them on the shelf and put them on display, any figure that kind of pops and has bright colours and looks kind of vibrant is a good one to have. So happy to have Steamboat at least. Okay, right. So next one, as I say, there are only three more to go in this series, and the other three, even though Steamboat, had he been on a decent card, he's not a really cheap figure to get. He's not like a throwaway figure, but he's probably the most accessible, the most kind of gettable of that four is Steamboat. But the other three are all pretty tough to get. So the other three that you can get is the Undertaker. So first wave, first release of the Undertaker. So it's the kind of clothesline move that that Knobs has over here, and he has his hat on. But out of the Undertakers, the Series 4 Undertaker is the kind of least sought after, if you want, the most readily available, because the Series 8, which was a colour variant that had the jacket, is much more valuable, much more rare. And then obviously the mail away, which is the same figure again, but again has a jacket and is a different colour variant in the hair. That one is mega rare, mega expensive. So the Undertaker, the Series 4 Undertaker is like the least sought after of the Undertakers, but still a carded Undertaker from Series 4 will cost you something. Bret Hart is the other one. Bret Hart is another one from Series 4. Similar to Undertaker, Series 4 was his first appearance in the line, and he then reappeared, same as the Undertaker, in Series 8 with a colour variant, same figure, but just a repaint sort of colour variant, which is more rare, harder to find, just like the Undertaker Series 8 figure as well. And again, just like the Undertaker, there's a mail-away Bret Hart as well, which has a purple heart on it, rather than the pink heart that came out in the Series 4 cards. But there is also some of the purple heart Bret Harts on Series 4 cards as well. So I don't know what happened there, whether or not that was just an excess of them that were re-released or something like that. But yeah, you can get a purple heart Bret Hart on Series 4 cards. More expensive, like I suppose rarer than the standard release pink heart. But these days, even the pink heart Bret Hart, it is getting expensive. It's getting up there as one of the harder figures to get your hands on. So as most of them are, actually, to be honest, there's not really any Hasbros that are getting cheaper. You know, they're all getting more and more expensive. But the other one in Series 4, so the fourth of the four figures in Series 4, is a guy that I've got here to unbox. And that is one I've been waiting a long time to do because it's one of my favourites growing up. That's this guy here, Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog. So this is, so Bulldog's obviously in a French card, as you can see. Not a bad French card actually. The corner is curled up slightly down here, and there's a crease at the other corner here, and up at the top there's been a price sticker pretty poorly removed, and it's caused some damage underneath where the price sticker was. So not a perfect mint on card, but this is one of these times where I got this for a really good price. I got a good deal on this, and when it arrived I thought, that's probably worth a lot more than what I paid for it. So it does go through my head, should I open it, should I unbox it, or should I sell it and try and make some money? But to be honest, like that's not why I'm involved in this. That's not why I'm collecting the Hasbros, is to try and make money. I know a lot of people do see pound signs whenever they see a carded Hasbro, but for me, this is about so much more than just making money. It's about the nostalgia, about reliving the experience of getting these figures the first time round and getting them off the card. So I thought about it for probably about 2 seconds and then I went, nah, okay, he's definitely getting opened up. But interestingly enough, before I do, Davey he's one of these guys that on card, certainly on English card, on English language card, but even on foreign language card, Davey's kind of rare on mint on cards, so he's hard to get. But for some reason, I don't know why, but a loose British Bulldog is just so easy to get. They're all over the place. You could pick up a loose British Bulldog for literally a couple of pounds on eBay or on Facebook or something. But a carded one will cost you hundreds. So it's mental that something that is so rare and so expensive on card can be so cheap and so accessible off card, because the green card figures, for example, they're expensive either way. They're expensive when they're carded, and they're still expensive when they're loose. But then different figures seem to have a different, opening them up is what I'm trying to say. It seems to have a different effect on the value of different figures. And I can't understand what that's based on, because you could think, oh, the ones that are cheaper on card are going to be really cheap off card, which is true, I suppose. But there are some, like Davey, and also, a bit like the Undertaker as well, that when he's on card, on his Series 4 card, that's an expensive piece of the line to get your hands on. But when they're loose, they're 10 a penny. So it's a strange one. And it'd be interesting to see if someone could work out the statistics behind that. Why does that happen? Why is there some that have such a massive drop in value when you take them off card, whereas other ones, like for example the green cards, like the Series 8 Undertaker, actually, he's one that's valuable loose as well, after you've taken them off card, but then others just plummet in value when you take them off the card. But anyway, I digress, I'm getting off topic. We're here to see Davey breathe, so let's open up the card, open up the bubble, and let the British Bulldog breathe. Yeah, it is actually a really good shape card and bubble, because it is really tight. It's hard to get my finger underneath and prise it off. I'm saving up all the cards and all the bubbles for somebody else who collects them. A member of the British Bulldogs, funnily enough, Facebook group, Kale. She's been in touch with me to ask if I could save all the bubbles and stuff. So I'm hoping to keep this in, because this is a nice shape one. I'm hoping to keep that in good shape for her. Right, here we go. Yeah, so this is a nice fig, man. This is my memories of this figure are clear. I know exactly when I saw this figure for the first time. I was at a wrestling event, like an indie wrestling event, with one of my friends, and I think my mum actually took us, just in the local town hall. And it was one of these pathetic things where, guys, I don't know if it was the one where they used to dress, it couldn't have been when I think about it, because I was going to say there used to be indie wrestling locally. Oh, sending them flying. Where they used to dress up as WWF guys, but when I think about who they dressed up as, it wasn't people from this era. It was more like Stone Cold and The Rock and Kane and Undertaker. But yeah, so I was at a sort of independent wrestling thing in the local town hall, and at the merchandise stand, at the merch stand, they had, I assume they must have had the Series 4 Hasbros. But this was before I even knew about them. I didn't even know they were coming out, because back then you only knew about them when they appeared in your shop, your local shop, and nowhere that I got figures from locally, because I would get figures from the Co-op, from Woolworths, and nowhere like that locally. John Menzies was another one you would get WWF Hasbro from, had these figures in stock. But then when we were at this event, they had just figures I'd never seen before, and I think I was so excited by seeing this guy, by seeing Davey Boy Smith, the British Bulldog, and obviously I bought him there. I got my mum to buy him for me, and I was just I'm blown away by the fact I had a British Bulldog, because I didn't know he existed before then, and so excited, couldn't wait to get him home and play with the rest of my wrestlers. But I assume they must have had Steamboat, Undertaker, Bret. They must have had the Wave Series 4 guys out. But I cannot for the life of me genuinely think who else they were selling. All I can remember is seeing the British Bulldog and being I need to have this, I need to have this. And got it immediately before I'd even sat back down in my seat. He was off the card and I was playing with him. And actually, I remember one of the wrestlers who, again, were random guys. I mean, they were just punters. They weren't anybody that went on to do anything or anything. But they were doing autographs as they did at the time, and I got the card, the British Bulldog card, because as I ripped it off, there was a bit in the, where the paper rips away. It was just plain, And I got the guy from the indie wrestling show to autograph it. That obviously lasted about a week before it was in the bucket. But yeah, British Bulldog is one that was one of my favourites growing up. And SummerSlam '92, the Bret Hart and British Bulldog Intercontinental title match is one of the clearest memories. Watching that after school with a pick and mix from Woolworths is one of the clearest wrestling memories I have growing up. So delighted to have him. Absolutely delighted to get this guy. His action is really stiff, and it feels so stiff that I'm not sure I want to try and push it, because I'm worried that if I try and click it, it feels like almost too stiff, you know. So I'm worried that if I force it, it might. I don't even want to do it. I don't want to do it just in case. But obviously he's got the Gorilla Press Slam action, the Hulk Hogan Series 1 action. It's working perfectly, but it feels very, very stiff as I'm moving it. He's got this body that it must have been the first time this body was used, because it was reused for Lex Luger in Series 8. But I just remember looking at it thinking, like, it was such a good depiction of the Bulldog, because the Bulldog was a muscle guy, a massive muscle guy. I don't know what I was trying to say there. Muscle guy. You know, he was huge, he was shredded, and he was bigger than the rest of the guys. So I thought this was a really good depiction of the British Bulldog compared to some of the others in the line that were there so far. But these gauntlets he wears, the kind of, I mean, it's not really wrist tape, because it is like the gauntlets that have the Union Jack pattern on them, and it's molded. It's not just painted, it's molded. These cause some controversy later on, because when the body is reused for Lex Luger, these are still there. They're still molded on, and his gauntlets, his Narcissist gauntlets, are just painted over. And that kind of, in many ways, that was like the beginning of the end for the Hasbro line, because they started to get lazy at that point, and just not just reusing like body parts and reusing moves and stuff like that, but blatantly not even bothering, because you're just leaving the Union Jacks on Lex Luger. That's just blatant. It's like, well, we just don't care that much. It's just too expensive or too much of a pain to try and correct that, so we're not going to. And then that led on to various other things, like Bart Gunn wearing Razor Ramon's waistcoat just because they couldn't be bothered coming up with a better body type, and Billy Gunn just having Jake the Snake's body. And it was the beginning of the end, really, for the Hasbro line at that point, where they were obviously cutting corners. They were obviously sort of starting to do some cost saving measures. But at this point, when the Series 4 came out, Hasbro line was flying, and the excitement that I can remember around this figure, having taken him to school the next day, and I think someone else I was at school with must have got Bret Hart, because I remember seeing Bret Hart in the school playground and thinking, well, that's actually a cool figure as well. I was so happy to have the British Bulldog, though. I didn't care. But I remember someone having it in the playground around about that same time, so I wonder if he got it at the wrestling show. But yeah, at this point, this was like probably peak of my collecting, my buying Hasbro's, been into Hasbro's, and being a fan of the WWF. So this is like massive nostalgia pop for me right now, having this guy in my hands. I mean, I have had Davey Boy Smiths as a collector as well. And as I say, you can get loose ones. I've picked up a couple of loose ones to try and do custom jobs on. But just having this minty fresh, brand new, out the box is just awesome. That is why I do this, and that is why I make these videos, because all the sort of emotions and the feelings that I'm experiencing now, that are just taking me back to when I was 8 years old, opening this up in the town hall. That's just epic. Delighted with that. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about his jaw. I'm hoping his action kind of loosens off a wee bit, so I can then try and get his hands into a position that's a bit more natural for posing him. But I'm worried that if I push it too hard, I might break that, which would be a disaster. But anyway, so move that out the road. That's that for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I really did. I really enjoyed that one. Even like Steamboat, as I say, he's a figure that I'm not crazy about, but he does look nice. I mean, it is quite, your eye catches him, so, or he catches your eye even. So glad to have him to have out on display, and absolutely over the moon, delighted with my minty fresh British Bulldog. So yeah, as I say, hopefully you enjoyed that. If you did, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notifications bell so you know when more videos are coming out. Hit the like button as well. Leave me a comment. Tell me about when you unboxed your Davy Boy Smith when you were 7, 8, 9 years old. Share the video again through social media. Yeah. Other than that, stay safe and we'll speak soon.